had a conversation like that with somebody else, and it was like imagine if Tupac was still alive, and imagine if Pimp was still alive. Like, but honestly, I'm looking, I'm like, if they were still alive, it still would be a whole new game now. Like, you gotta understand, like, look at everybody else from their era. Like, when you look at Tupac, you gotta look at artists like Richie Rich. It's like, that's like, they gotta take the backseat. You know what I mean?
Well,
and they let like nowadays you gotta let these young niggas drive. Like,
I mean, you got that, but then like Tupac was turned on a level that I don't even think you have anyone like that in 2021.
No,
you see what I'm saying? Like, he was turned, but for a reason. You know, with like an actual mission.
He was wild. He just was wild.
He was
wild.
Was
intelligent. He was intelligent.
Right. He was intelligent. He was wild. He really cared about his race.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He really came from a Black Panther background and saw what his mom went through and being born in prison and everything else like that. Like guys like Tekashi or who are, you know, like a Lil Uzi Vert, they're just trolling for the sake of trolling. They're not trolling to try to better the conditions of their people or you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Shit like that. They're not willing to pull out a cop on a gun, you know, pull out a gun on a cop because they see some random black kid getting jumped. They wouldn't do that shit.
We was coming up from a long caravan, so couldn't really hear a lot of the dialogue, but you know, they was going back and forth. And like I said, a gun came out, you know what I'm saying, from one of the white dudes. Now at the time, we don't know the cops. They just two white boys beating up a black dude.
Because they're off duty.
Right. They were off duty. It's not like they was in uniforms and none of that. So, you know, a gun come out, you know what I'm saying? And Pac pulled up his shirt and was like, thug like, motherfucker, shoot. You know what I mean? And that just stopped the cop in his tracks. He didn't know what to do at that point. So he was standing next to Pac's car, brand new BMW 750 he had just bought, and he just broke the window with the butt of the gun.
The cop broke Pac's window.
Yeah, with the butt of the gun, and then turned around and started running. You know what I'm saying? And you know, the rest is history.
Well, Pac ended up pulling out his gun.
Exactly.
And shooting at the two white off-duty cops.
Yeah, exactly.
Shot both of them.
Got down on one knee.
Oh, he actually got, because I heard he had been...
Pop.
But see, Tupac didn't even know they was cops, though. Or he didn't know they was cops.
Look, man, he pulled over and saw two white dudes beating up a black kid.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And got
they
involved.
Just so happened to be police officers.
Just so happened. You know, but I interviewed the cop that was there when he died.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, the first, Chris Carroll, the first responder. After the Vegas shooting. And he said that, we'll play the clip, but basically he pulled up on his bicycle because, you know, the traffic was so bad after the Tyson fight. And what happened was when he got out, I mean, he didn't know any of the people there. He didn't know who Suge or Tupac was or whoever, right? He was like a regular white dude. And he opened the door in the BMW and Pac fell out with blood all over his jewelry. And he was trying to get a death confession out of him, saying like, who did this? Because in the line of police work, what he was explaining was that if you can get someone to say what had happened before they died, that could be admissible in their case. And then Pac, you know, as he's coughing up blood, looked at him and realized he was the cop and said, fuck you. And then he slipped into a coma, and then he died a couple of days later.
I pulled the door open, and when I pulled it open, the guy sitting in the passenger seat, who turns out later to be Tupac, he kind of slumped out, came out with the door. So he's in the car, he's leaning against the door, and as I open the door, he kind of spills out. So he spilled out, and I just kind of grabbed him with one hand, and then I was pointing the gun at Suge with the other, because Suge is still trying to run up to me, and you know, the guy's clearly a threat. He was also just absolutely gushing blood out of the side of his head, but he's acting fine. I mean, he's not incapacitated in any way. He's shooting blood out of his side of his head, and he starts yelling at Tupac, and he's yelling at him, Pac, Pac, and he just keeps yelling, Pac. And I can see, then I look down, I can see Tupac is trying to yell back to Suge. and he's just kind of not physically able to do it. And he's kind of, you know, you could see him sort of mouthing, and they're in eye contact with each other. And he's trying to get something out to yell at Suge, and he can't get the words out. But he's still, you know, he's fully conscious. He's moving. He's kind of squirming, and that's when I looked at him, and there was, you know, an extensive amount of blood on him, and I saw that he had. I couldn't tell exactly where it was, but he had clearly had torso wounds, which are, of course, you know, almost always going to be life-threatening. So I realized then this guy has a good possibility of dying. So I looked at him and I said, you know, what happened? Who shot you? Who did this? You know, what's going on? And he's just really just kind of ignoring me. He's not even, you know, even though I'm right there holding him, he's just kind of not acknowledging my presence, and he's trying to yell back at Suge. Well, I turned around at Suge, and that was the first time I noticed. I saw the back of another bike officer, and he was pushing Suge away from me, and that's the first time I realized there's other cops there, so that made me feel a lot better. So he kind of pushes Suge back, and Suge is still yelling, "Pack, pack." He's trying to yell at him, and then I saw Tupac just, all of a sudden, just in an instant, he went from trying to, you know, kind of squirming, looking at Suge, trying to get the words out, to where you could tell he physically just gave up. He just wasn't able to do it. And he just crossed that line into just quitting and being at peace. And he just kind of laid back and was calm and was no longer looking or trying to do anything. And I could just see that he was just, you know, it's kind of like almost like an athlete or a runner when they hit that wall, and it's just like it's over, and you could see that in his face. And I looked at him once again. I said, "What happened? Who did this? Who shot you?" And now he's looking at me, so we're looking at each other in the eyes, and this is kind of the first time he's even acknowledging my presence. And he looked at me, and I could tell he was getting a breath together to tell me, and he looked me right in the eyes, and we looked at each other, and he said, "Fuck you." And he said it just like that, with the emphasis on that F, to, you know, to really let me know. That's how he felt. So he said that, and right after he said it, he just kind of started gurgling, and you could tell he was in bad shape, and his eyes, he's starting to lose consciousness then, and his eyes roll back. And as it turns out, that would be his last conscious moment and his last words.
Tupac's last words were "fuck the police."
Mm-hmm. I heard that before. I heard that interview before.
Tupac's last words on earth. It wasn't like "save me." It wasn't "help me. I'm dying.
Fuck
Get me an
police.
ambulance." Said, "Fuck you. I ain't telling you shit." As you're dying.
That was hard.
They don't make them like Tupac.
That was hard.
They just don't. So my thing is, if Tupac was alive right now, I think he'd be the king of all this shit. Motherfuckers would be, you know, looking up to him what to do next.